All right. Morning, guys. Welcome to Goat Talk this morning. Got my buddy Bill Bronchick on here. We're going to talk about subject to and creative financing. Welcome, Bill. How are you?
I am awesome. Thank you, William. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to see how many people jump on here, and we'll start talking about some subject to stuff. I know we're going to also tell everybody about this workshop that you're having on Saturday. You don't do these very often, do you?
No, once every, usually a particular subject topic, I'll do like once every 3 years or so. But with COVID, I'm doing a little more often, but hopefully get the real thing, like your event in the fall, So, but yeah, this event I won't be doing for a while. This is one I haven't done in years. So it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, maybe twice in a lifetime.
Right. Yep. Everybody needs to go check it out. You can go to sub2deals.com/sub2zoom and take a look at it. It's this coming Saturday. It's going to be an all-day Zoom thing. And I got my start with Bill. Saw him at an event and bought this huge stack of courses and everything, and took all those things home and started buying some houses. So you guys jump on it over there. Goat Talk is live this morning from Rock Springs, Wyoming. So Goat's on the road this morning. All right, guys. So let's get going. Tell me, Bill, one of the things I noticed about your workshop, you were talking about how COVID has impacted investing. What are the biggest things that you're seeing, that the biggest ways that COVID's impacted what you do today and your students?
Well, in the beginning, it was just shut down. Nothing was being shown. Deals are not getting done. Deals are getting done, but as you know, the pipeline is long and lenders are backed up and title companies are backed up. But in terms of the numbers and the opportunities for the investors, we are at the highest level of mortgage default now since 2009. And that is going to eventually be a day of reckoning. Right now, it's artificial because banks can't foreclose for the most part. And a lot of states are prohibiting it, and Fannie, Freddie, and FHA are being limited by the federal government. People are on deferments. They're not on forbearances for the most part. That just means that you're not making your payment, but once they end that, all your payments for the last year or so are due. And it is my bet that 9 out of 10 people won't be able to do it. So what happens then? Either if they're working and they can afford it, the lender will do a forbearance, which is add the back payments to the end of their loan and just extend their loan term, and then they can start making payments going forward. But you have to show that you're working and you have the income to support the monthly payments. Another variation that's been floated around is the banks will take your back payments and put it as a second lien at some low rate of interest, so you make 2 payments. But again, you can't qualify for that unless you could show you have the income. And a lot of people's income, because their job was either lost and they're doing whatever they can just to survive at Starbucks or whatever job they can get, or they had a business that's suffering. So they're not making the same income, a lot of people. So I think we're going to see a lot of people not get forbearances and end up in foreclosure. And that's an opportunity for investors to take property subject to. The only challenge is going to be the length of the back payments. The amount is going to be sizable. A year's worth of payments could be 30, 40 grand. But presumably values have gone up in the last year or two enough that they'd have enough equity to make it worth their while, worth your while as an investor. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't like plunking down 25 grand in back payments to take a subject to, unless there's, 75 or 100,000 worth of equity to buy. But it's an opportunity to help people too, because as you know, if they don't catch up the payments, they go through foreclosure, their credit's ruined. If you catch it up and get it back into place, then it goes from 30, 60, 90 late to current, and then their credit starts improving as you make your payments on time. So I think it's a win-win.
Hey, Andrew, good to see you. Matt, Farouk, good to see you. Matt said he's heard that a lot of courts are still only operating at 25% capacity.
True.
Gosh, I know that impacts people that do a lot of courthouse research, for sure.
True, and foreclosures in mortgage states, are done through the courts. So even when they lift the ban, there could be a year backlog for foreclosures. In deed of trust states where you're not necessarily going for a court action, it's a lot faster. But still, the question is what happens next? Is the government going to continue this indefinite bailout of homeowners by not allowing lenders or forcing lenders that are under Fannie, Freddie, and FHA to do forbearances, or like I said, putting a second on the property for the back payments? I can't imagine there's a scenario where the government would say you have to do a forbearance even if the homeowner is not working.
Right.
That's not be a reality.
I saw something recently that looked like they're leaning that way, that it was a proposal for a bill or something talking about taking mortgages out to 40 years to accomplish this and do that sort of stuff. I'm not a huge conspiracy theorist and all of that stuff, but it looks almost like they're trying to get themselves positioned in a way to control the banks and who does the lending and that sort of stuff. It's kind of strange, really. But you never know with the government.
You never know. And, I don't want to get political on these discussions, but the Democrats are in control and they're the ones making the rules now. And they tend to favor the homeowner over the bank. I mean, let's face it, there's more voters that are in trouble with their mortgage than rich bankers.
That's absolutely true.
That's the same thing with the landlord tenant.
Hey, Phil.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Phil, good to see you. Marcia. Yeah, Marcia, I know recently she said she was able to get the back payments put on the back end of the loan, and they didn't make her prove anything for that particular thing. So absolutely. Yeah, Kevin, you're right. Income is the key.
Right. Income. And another opportunity I think is going to see is a lot of frustrated landlords bailing because they're not getting paid. They can't evict. They have to pay their mortgage still. So, finding a landlord who says, that's it, I've had it, take my property subject to, and give me some cash for my equity, or give me a note with some payments for the equity. And then you just figure in whatever the cost of carrying it until evictions are allowed or bribing the tenant to leave as part of your purchase price.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about with that. We just had a student recently. Actually, I think she says she knows you, Terry Cuffey, said she went to school with you. But she and her partner bought a condo where the tenant wasn't paying, and the people that owned it, they were kind of accidental landlords. And a lot of times in cases like that, the landlord is too personally involved to go make a deal with the tenant. They just can't bring themselves to do it. But we can step in and go knock on the door and say, hey, listen, I'm going to give you the best deal in town. I'm going to forgive your back payments, write you a check to move, get out of the house. And they'll both. So, yeah, it works out well.
Let's do it. Like Tony Soprano says, it's just business. Don't make it personal.
Yep. That's right. Mark asked, where do you see this thing going, and where do you see the greatest opportunities right now in judicial states where there's a big backlog? Do you think it's a better opportunity there?
Well, I think all states, it'll be a good opportunity. Mortgage states are a bigger backlog because the court process is delayed more than in deed of trust states where you just do a power of sale foreclosure. But either way, I mean, there's still the long backlog, and nobody's allowed to do it in some states. In some states, they completely ban foreclosures. The feds ban it on the government-controlled loans. So I think the opportunities are going to be for people who are behind in payments, people who are landlords that are frustrated, and then just the same deal as usual. There's as good as the market is price wise, it's a seller's market in most cities because of low inventory. And people say, I can't find a deal. Well, if you call up a realtor and say, I want a subject to, do you have any on the MLS where I don't have to put any money down? I mean, you're not gonna find anything. Or you're looking at Craigslist. I've been looking at Craigslist and I haven't found anything. What are you looking for? An ad that says, take my payments over with no qualifying, no money down, and no payments for a year without interest. I mean, you're not going to find an ad. Like, you got to flush out people who are in particular situations like divorce, death in the family, job transfer, loss of job, can't do the repairs, drug addicts, kids living rent free. That's one of my favorites. Where the parents don't have the heart to throw out their kids, so they just sell the house.
Yep.
So, that exists in all markets, that, that particular, those particular scenarios, despite the fact that, prices are rising and sellers are getting top dollar.
Right. That's right. Hey, Sammy, good to see you. Joni, good morning. She says, good morning, Bills. Ha ha ha. Yeah, I've got a JV partner that he just got started with me a couple of weeks ago, and I told him some basic stuff to do, and we're talking to a lady right now. They're getting a divorce. They've split up. The house has been vacant for months. It's got $100,000 in equity, and he called me last night. He said, I finally got her on the phone. She was hard to find, and I said, well, that's great because it's hard for anybody to find her. But he said he finally got her on the phone, and she said those magic words, we just want out. We're super excited about talking to her tonight for sure. But yeah, you just got to look. And but you're right. Yeah, the MLS isn't going to have a lot of opportunities for you right now, for sure.
Got to find that. And
I know in Colorado Springs, when there's a week worth of inventory. So yeah,
right, exactly. And prices are being overbid. Properties are overbid because you're at 20% of normal inventory. So buyers are like, a feeding frenzy. They come in and overbid the property by 10, 20% sometimes, and it won't appraise, and they just pay the difference in cash. You can't compete with that.
Yeah, we just left the Portland, Oregon area. We spent a few days up there with Jody's kids, and there, houses up there are going for 50 to 100,000 over asking price. I mean, it's crazy.
What about in the chop zone? Areas, the chop zones, the areas like in Seattle and Portland where all the thugs took over and said,
oh yeah.
I'm sure that's true. Yeah. Values,
Yeah, don't know about that one. You might want to stay out of there. I don't know what do you see happening with this craziness, like the Portland or even what we see in Colorado. I mean, how I can remember so vividly in 2007, 2008 when it was all California. Right. It's going for 100,000 over asking, and I said, it just can't be sustained.
But now it's everywhere.
But one of the realtors,
right?
It's one of the realtors,
California and New York. It's everywhere. It's insane.
In Colorado said that she had spoken to an economist who said that we could sustain this type of appreciation and growth for another 3-4 years. What will a median priced home be in 3 or 4 years?
600.
I mean,
yeah.
3
years, I see 600 as the median price in Denver. And, the reason is supply and demand. There's just no inventory for sale, and the builders are not building fast enough to keep up. And it's not enough what they build. And a lot of buyers, sellers are reluctant to sell because they say, well, I can get top dollar, but what am I going to buy? So unless they're upsizing or downsizing significantly or moving out of the state, a lot of people are just sitting on their equity or refinancing their equity because they realize, although they'll get top dollar, they're going to pay top dollar on the next property. So that's the reason why we have so little inventory, particularly on the lower end of things, in the median price and a little bit below that, they don't build any more of those homes. If in Colorado, it used to be, we used to buy houses for 20 grand. I mean, that's a joke. You can't buy a portalet for 20 grand. Typical houses in my rentals neighborhoods are, 3 to 350, and most of them I bought for 60 to 70, not even 10 years ago. So those properties are your typical, lower blue collar working class neighborhoods where they're, 1950s, 60s ranches, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1-car garage, 1,300 square feet. They're not building any more of those. Right. A developer can't afford to buy land at premium prices and do all the subdivision work and then build a 1,200 square foot house for $300,000. It's just not feasible because the cost of drywall and 2x4s at that point is nominal compared to the cost of the subdivision. So they're going to build a 3,000 square foot house instead of a 1,200 square foot house to get their money out. So especially on that type of property, it's no end in sight because there's just no inventory of that kind that's left.
Right. Andrew asked, he says, talk remedies if a seller has a cluster of rentals with a tenant sitting on their asses, and ways to acquire and remove those people if cash for keys doesn't work. What do you do in that scenario?
Repairs. That's as simple as that. No, I'm just kidding. You don't do that. Well, you have to look at what are your contingency plan if you buy this house. Worst case scenario is you're going to sit on it for probably 6 months or more. Even if they said you could start doing evictions again tomorrow for non-payment, there'd be a 6-month backlog between the courts and the sheriffs, right? So let's say I buy a property now in the end of April, I got to figure I'm getting no income until January of next year, and just bake that into the offer. I mean, if I get lucky and I could pay someone $5,000 in cash to leave, yeah, that'd be great. But their problem is, where do they go?
Yeah, the deal has to make sense with an extended holding time for sure. And you got to be able to do that. So, I mean, you got to have the money from somewhere, a private lender, if you don't have it yourself, or whatever the case may be, for sure. Marcia says, sell it, cash in, and go buy an RV. Yeah.
I was just going to say that. Get them a mobile home or an RV.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Matt says people are going to get crushed when the interest rates hit 6% again. That'd be pretty expensive.
Right. That's the only X factor in terms of supply and demand, because demand is there, for properties. Supply is extremely low, and that's what's keeping the market so high. Interest rate rises will affect demand because it affects how much house a borrower can buy. Right. So if demand will drop, if interest rates, spike substantially, I don't see it going to 6 so fast, but I think we could see 4.5 to 5 by the end of next year. It's possible.
It's funny though. When I got started, if I took over payments on a house with 8%, I was happy. I thought that was great. So it's interesting how things change. But when, of course, the median price for a home in the United States at that time was $175.
Right. So 11 versus 4% doesn't matter much on a $60,000 loan.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. Hey, Tim, good to see you. Jonah, good to see you in here. Tammy. Yeah, it is crazy times for sure. So, okay, so we got this here. Yeah, right. Yeah, this okay. So Jody said she made the broadcast public so you guys can share it. So share it with your friends. Hey, Corey, good to see you in here. So what's your favorite exit strategy for a sub-2 property? I mean, mine's always been seller financing. Yeah. So what's your favorite? I don't know. In this market, it may be selling it for cash, depending on the position. As far as equity,
you could, in some properties, it may make sense to take subject to, rent it for a year, and then sell it cash, just to get the long-term capital gains rate, assuming they don't jack it to 43, which is in the works. But that aside, buy it subject to, sell it on a wraparound. Usually I use a contract for deed when I sell, and buy subject to and get the deed when I buy. The only place you can't do that is Texas. Texas, you can't sell on for deed. You just buy on a versus trust deed and sell that way.
So what are you doing in Texas? I mean, I've never bought in Texas. They don't like the contract for deeds. You can't sell that way without getting side eye. And I've heard everything, just sell it on a regular wrap, which I don't like because you lose control of the situation, to convoluted thing where you sell the beneficial interest of a trust.
Right.
Which, you can do too. Explaining that to our typical buyer, you get the deer in headlights.
Good luck.
I don't
think a judge is going to like it anyway. Judges don't get it either. It's funny because I did a mediation recently where the mediator was a district court judge who had been a lawyer for 47 years and a judge for 20.
Wow.
And he never heard of a land trust. I never heard of such a thing, and buying this way and putting it in a trust, and the other attorney said they never heard of it, and it's very unusual, and they were baffled. So try to explain it to a regular judge in court to get someone out. The thing is, in Texas, the foreclosure process is only 21 days by non-judicial means. So you're right. I don't like giving up control and giving a deed, but getting it back is not as hard as, let's say, Florida, which could take you 6 months to a year.
That's true. Okay, so here's one for you. And for some reason, this question comes up a lot lately, and I was just wondering what your take is on it. You talk about seller objections, and this one. Okay, so I let you take over my payments. What happens if you die?
Well,
Okay.
my heirs would pay it because it's a corporate entity that is buying. So, you know, my partners, my family, they would continue making the payments as, you know, business as usual.
Right, exactly. Okay, I just wondered what your if your thought was any different on that. I mean, you know, we explained that, you know, we place property in a trust for its protection, and we've got, you know, people backing us up that would just step in and take over business as usual. So if you guys have any questions, let us have those in the comments. So my next question is one we get from new students a lot. What I find is most people are worried about the wrong things when it comes to buying subject to, which, you know, really is just an acquisition strategy. It's not a magic wand. But what's the biggest danger in your opinion? Of course, the due on sale clause, you know, everybody's scared of that. But what's truly the biggest danger in taking over payments on somebody else's loan?
The only danger is just the seller not understanding and then coming back years later and saying, that's mine. And if you do the right thing by not only, you know, it's not just about having good documents and contracts, which I have great disclosures that make it very clear it's not their house anymore. But people do silly things like they put it in a land trust, and the land trust is called the seller's name. So John Smith is selling the property to the John Smith Family Trust. Now, the reason for that is, you know, partly to, you know, kind of dupe the bank a little bit into thinking it's the guy's just doing some estate planning, which I don't think is necessary. Also, getting insurance is easier because, you know, changing the insurance from John Smith to John Smith Family Trust is easier on the underlying insurance. The problem with that process, and especially if they do it where they put it in the trust and then assign a beneficial interest, it's so fuzzy to the average seller. And I've had attorneys come back on, you know, I've represented many clients. It doesn't happen to me, but it's happened to many of my clients where an attorney came back and said, no, he still owns part of this. And it's, you know, it's not what you think it is. And I had a recent situation where I had a client who did a subject to almost 20 years ago. And he put it in a trust, assigned beneficial interest. He didn't use the seller's name on the trust though. And then the guy got divorced, and in divorce, you have to disclose, you know, your assets. So the guy didn't disclose it because in his mind, he sold it. He didn't have a problem understanding that. But the wife said, wait a minute, you didn't disclose that asset and you haven't paid me maintenance all these years. I want that house. And she filed a lis pendens against the house, and her attorney was just a complete moron and didn't understand it. And finally, when I talked to the attorney and explained what happened, he went, okay, you're right. He doesn't own it. He never owned it. It's in 20 years. I said, even if he didn't, the statute of limitations for adverse possession is 18 years in Colorado. He can claim that. He's been making the payments. He's been renting it out, collecting the rents, maintaining it. Under what theory could the seller possibly think he still owns the property?
Right. So Matt asked, Matt Savage, he said, do you ever chase a list of sellers who are elderly so you could get the loan before they pass?
No. Can you imagine an attorney general investigating you saying, my marketing strategy is to chase old people?
Yeah, I told you, Matt's a savage.
That would not go well for a business practice, you know. So no, well, you got to remember, for those of you who do that, reverse mortgages are due when they die or they move out. So you can't really take subject to a reverse mortgage.
Lisa asked, are you familiar with a transfer on death deed in Texas?
Yeah, a transfer on death deed is sort of like a joint tenancy, but you're passing it to a third party. So joint tenancy, husband, wife, joint tenants, husband dies, wife automatically gets it, no probate, you know, it's automatic. A transfer on death would be, let's say husband died and wife is the sole owner now, and wants her daughter to have it without going through probate. So you can either do a living trust, or you just file a transfer on death deed, and the transfer on death deed just says when the person who's on title dies, it automatically transfers to this party outside of probate.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Hey, Marcia. Yeah, that was cool. What it, Mike, yeah, works for reverse mortgages, LOL. No, I think reverse mortgages are about the only things that we don't do. I think pretty much everything. But we, hear commonly that you can't take a VA loan subject to. Those are some of our favorites. VA loans are great.
A lot of people don't know is that a contract for deed does trigger the due on sale on a mortgage, because they say a transfer of any kind, triggers it. On a VA loan, only a VA loan, the VA loan manual says that a transfer by contract for deed or lease option or anything that doesn't transfer actual title does not trigger due on sale on a VA loan. So in theory, if you really wanted to be sure that you're not going to get the loan called and you're going to keep it a long time, you could buy the property, a VA property on a wraparound contract for deed. But there's other problems with contracts for deed that could come up, like the seller disappearing, dying, filing bankruptcy, So I still take my chances and take subject to a VA loan. Now, absolutely. A lot of title companies will tell you, we'll do subject twos, but not FHA or VA loans. Yep. And I don't understand the rationale. They think because they're government guaranteed or insured that it's a crime, and it's not. There's no. Yep. There's nothing. They're just regular loans from banks that have a guarantee or an insurance from the government, right? So there's this old rumor, like a wives' tale that's been running around for years, that I've heard that if FHA catches a title company doing sub twos on FHA loans, they will ban them from doing HUD closings.
I've heard that too.
It's completely false. There's no such rule, and I've never seen it happen. I've been hearing that tale for 25 years.
Right. Sammy asked, is it possible to buy sub two and owner finance, hypothecate that note in order to pay off the UPB to the lender?
Yeah, I guess so. Why not? Why not?
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Matt asked, wouldn't the person not be able to get another VA loan? No, Matt, that's not true. As long as their entitlement is large enough, they can have multiple VA loans. Absolutely. That's another thing you apply.
If they don't pay off that loan and you take it subject to, then they lose part of their entitlement. But I think it's state by state, depending on values. Like in Colorado, it's somewhere I heard was like 550 was the limit. So if you took subject to their 200 loan, in theory, they can get another 350 loan from VA.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. Let's see. We got a lot of questions coming in now. Sarah asked, what is your opinion on estate planning? What are your thoughts on a single trust versus a community trust?
I'm going to give you the lawyer answer. It depends. So I like to do joint trusts in community property states where you have separate property of previous marriages and things like that. Then people like to do separate trusts versus a joint trust. Okay. That's
Jonah. Okay. Jonah asked, what are your marketing strategies for markets like Dallas? Do you have a budget? Do you outsource the work?
The same as anywhere else. We're going to look at people who are VA loans, by the way, is a great list to mail to. People who have VA loans is a list you can buy. So VA loans, what's unique about that? Well, first, they don't put anything down, so they have nothing they expect back unless they've had it for 20 years, right?
Or unless they live in Colorado.
Right. Their interest rate is, or you can buy a list and say I want a list for this city of loans originated in the last 3 years that are VA, and see how many there are. They tend to move often because they get stationed other places. They're young, usually, a lot of them are, young people who just got out of the service and bought a home. Not all of them. You have some older people who do VA loans. And unfortunately, military service puts a lot of stress on families, and the divorce rate is very high amongst veterans. People in the military have a high divorce rate. So odds are more than a regular couple, they might be looking at a divorce and a need to sell a property quickly.
Right. Okay. So VAs are a great source to target, not reverse mortgages. We don't like those for certain. Okay. All right. So any other questions? You guys, you got Bill Bronchick on here now. It was hard to get him on here. He's a busy guy. So
All right.
anyway, tell us a little bit about your workshop that you're doing Saturday.
So Saturday, May 1st, 9 to 4 Mountain Time, translate to yours if you know how. Because always people in Phoenix always get screwed up because they split between Mountain and Standard. So it's Mountain Daylight Time, 9 to 4, with a 1-hour break for lunch. So it's basically 6 hours of content, 6 sessions. I'm going to cover everything from the big overview of how a subject to works to walking through the process. Advertising, marketing, handling calls, just negotiating, putting it under contract, and they're going to get my contract with admission, and we're going to go over it. I'm going to go over how to fill it out on the workshop, then doing your due diligence before closing it, and then back end strategies. So subject to rent, subject to lease option, subject to wrap, subject to flip, and all the potential pitfalls and legal issues, tax issues, and then all the little logistical things like insurance and how you handle the payments and all that stuff.
Right. Okay. So if you guys want to take a look at that, you can go to sub2deals.com /sub2 Zoom. And that'll get you right to the page. I'll take a look at it. I'm telling you, man, it's some of the best training out there for sure. Let's see. Jonah had a question here. What advantages would he have as a loan officer as far as acquiring sub-2s?
Oh, well, unless he's working for a big mortgage company that might get him in trouble, the leads. People come in and say, I need a mortgage to refi, and you say, I'm sorry, I can't refi you. Now they're in trouble. So what are you going to do with that lead? You're going to follow up with it, or maybe refer it to a buddy who gives you a cut on the deal when he takes it subject to. But if you work for like Wells Fargo in their loan department, they're not going to take kindly to that. If you're a mortgage broker, then who cares? You're not working for any bank.
Matt asked, is your workshop like the cash cow course?
No, the cash cow course is on wraps. I'm going to cover wraps to the extent that it is a back-end strategy for sub-2s. Now, as you know, I have a sub-2 course. If you have that, the good news is you don't have to sign up for the workshop, because I'm going to take the recording of this video of this workshop and put it in the sub-2 course. Mm-hmm. So if you already have my course, you can do this.
Right. I know Rudy asked, and Corey, will there be a recording? Yes, I know. I noticed that you're going to provide the recording to everybody that participates. And also, Rudy, if you've got the cash cow course, obviously, you'll get the recording as well. Lisa asked, do you suggest a third-party servicer, or can we do it ourselves?
I don't bother with that. I used to, but with everything being online now, it's so easy to go to, Bank of America's website, if they're the mortgage company, and you have an account for the seller, who's the borrower, and you have a login, and where it says automated payments every month or manually make a payment, it just asks for who's on the name on the account, what's the routing number, and what's the account number. And they don't care if it's not the borrower. They just want to know it's being paid somehow.
You guys know what I think about third-party servicers. I think, if you got a couple of houses and you're nervous about things and you want to try it out, but these guys charge, lately I've heard of some that charge $20 a month, but a lot of them are charging 50 or more. And you look up in a couple of years and you've got 50, 60 houses, you could hire an assistant to work for you full time for what you're paying mortgage servicers. I just don't see the benefit.
The only time I would use a service is if I was buying on a wrap, not subject to, and I'm paying the seller, and there's a spread. So the servicer would pay his payment on the mortgage, cut him a check for the difference, you know, that's, you know, where I want protection. But on a straight subject to where I'm making the payments, I don't want to make it to the seller, certainly, and have him make it. And paying to a third party is really doesn't add any benefit to the equation, because I'm writing a check to them and then they're sending a check to the lender. So what does that accomplish?
Right. Exactly. Hey, Tammy, good to see you. She asked, can a trust beneficiary be another trust?
Sure. Absolutely. Trust beneficiary could be another trust. It could be an LLC, corporation, limited partnership. Very common, what I do for estate planning for people on their primary residence is they put it in a land trust, and then the beneficiary is their family living trust. So they get both anonymity, because, you know, the family trust is called the William Tingle Family Trust. We don't want to put that on title. We want to take subject to in, you know, the 458 Main Street Trust. And, you know, if that's William's live-in residence, then he'll put his family trust as the beneficiary. So he passes through probate to who he wants.
Okay. Hey, David, good to see you. Where would you get a list of VA loans?
Very easy. Anything that's public record is a list. You know, people gather information from public record. So if a loan was originated and the mortgage is VA, it's on public record and someone's gathering that information. I mean, you can get a list of, you know, one-armed lesbians from Mars who like avocado.
That's pretty specific.
Yeah.
Listen, guys, if you're using PropStream, and if you're an investor, you should be using PropStream. You can pull 10,000 leads a month, and they took the ability to isolate to VA out, but we have a workaround for that. We've shared that video in the coaching group. You can narrow them down to VA loans. Okay, so PropStream, go out and get it. sub2deals.com/PropStream. Get a 7-day free trial and save a couple of bucks a month off your subscription.
That's come a long way.
You
PropStream like 12 years ago when it was a desktop.
Yeah.
And it was okay back then. It was a little slow, but now that it's online, it's lightning. It's just tremendous program.
Yeah. We had it in the beginning too and stopped using it because it got really wonky, but Paul's really fixed that thing up nice. Phil asked, how do you structure entities for fix and flip properties versus long-term holds? And how does a management company fit into this structure?
Good question. So different types of income. Flip income is ordinary or earned income. Rental income is passive income. So generally speaking, and there are exceptions, but the general rule is for earned or ordinary income, you want to use an S Corp or a C Corp. For rental income, you want to use something like an LLC, either as a partnership or as a disregarded, because it's going to report on Schedule E or on a schedule of partnership, not subject to self-employment tax or FICA tax. If you do fix and flips in an LLC that is single member, you're reporting on Schedule C, which is self-employed income, and you're paying that 15.3% into the FICA system, which you probably don't want to. So that's generally how you do it. Now, how does the management company fit in? The way I do it is, well, I don't do this now. I'll tell you why. I did it before I had a property manager. I had all my properties in land trusts. And then the land trust hired an S Corp I had as a property manager to collect all the rents, because I don't want to have accounts for every land trust. So they pay the property manager, and the property manager takes 10% as a fee of the gross rents. That sucks off income off of the LLC that's underneath the land trusts. So that number of net rental income is reduced. Now we've got this money in the S Corp. What do we do with it? General business expenses that you can't deduct on properties. Like if you're going to travel, let's say to, you know, Atlanta, Georgia from Dallas to scout out properties, where do you fit travel on your schedule of properties on Schedule E? You really can't, but you could put it on the S Corp return, you know, as an expense, or a computer or software, you know, things that are not neatly in the category of expenses for an individual property, but in the business itself. So the idea would be to zero that out the best you can, so it becomes a net zero on the S Corp return.
Spend that money.
Spend that money.
It's better than giving it to the government for sure.
Set up a 401k in your S corp and contribute to that.
Yep. Tammy asked, what courses do you have to attend the workshop?
All of my courses.
If you,
Every one of them. No, I'm just kidding.
you need all of them.
No,
So, yeah.
I'm just kidding. No, you don't need any of them. I'm going to start, from kindergarten on the subject too.
Okay. I think what he was saying, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if you have the cash cow course, you're going to put this recording inside of that.
No,
So you'll get the
subject 2 course I'm going to put it into. The cash cow course is
okay,
on
the subject.
the subject 2 course is on.
Okay.
So it's going to go in there.
Gotcha. Okay. So if you've got the subject 2 course, you'll actually get this workshop. Okay. Rini asked, does the seller ever try and have continued access with the servicer after the sub 2 is complete?
Not in my experience, I don't really see a reason why they would need to. You should get a power of attorney, a limited durable power of attorney from that seller, so you can deal with the servicer, because they're not going to deal with you because you're not the borrower, unless you've got something in writing.
Yeah.
I haven't had the only experience I had where the seller got involved with the property is I was stupid enough to take subject to a loan with a HELOC that was not completely drawn. And like a year later, the guy got short on money and wrote a check on the HELOC that was on my property. And I said, I learned that lesson. I'm like, I'm not going to do that again, So I just never occurred to me to do such a thing.
Yeah. Mike asked, are there any Dodd-Frank concerns that would make us want to use a servicer? Say no.
Not on a buy. Not on a buy.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Jonah asked, he has a follow-up on his the failed refi clients. The motivation for the refi is my concern or question. By not qualifying for the refi, is the owner facing potential foreclosure? I guess that depends on the situation he's in and why he's trying to get a refinance.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Lisa asked, can we set up a living trust to hold all of our LLCs?
Yeah, that's very highly recommended, because what a lot of estate planning attorneys will do is set up a living trust and then put all the rental properties and the home and everything and all the assets in the living trust. Now that accomplishes avoiding probate because everything's in the trust, but it doesn't give you any protection. So the idea is you own your assets and your business assets and your real estate and everything in corporate entities, and then the corporate entities are owned by the living trust. So what you're passing to your heirs is not the assets, it's the keys to the companies that own the assets.
Okay. All right. If you guys have any other questions, just go ahead and drop them in the box here.
It's a great question.
And
you got a sharp one.
So, Lisa, yeah, hey man, my students are cool as heck. So Lisa asked, how do you pull VA loans from PropStream? Lisa, that video's inside the coaching group. It's not out in the sub 2 forum. So we'd love for you to join us in there. We'll teach you how to do it. We got some tricks for our students. So be glad to show you in there. Bill, tell us just a little bit about your workshop again one more time. I know you got to jump off here. You've got a coaching call that you've got to do. So tell us a little bit more about it, and we'll give them a link and let them go check it out.
Thanks. It's this Saturday, 9 to 4 Mountain Daylight Time, which is translate to your time zone. It's 6 sessions, and it's going to cover A to Z, subject to. We start in kindergarten. What is a subject to? How does it work? Why it's legal? And the sort of the the 360 degree, 40,000 foot view of it. And then we're going to go into the process from A to Z. How to find them, how to negotiate them, put them under contract, do due diligence, run the numbers, evaluate whether it makes sense, because not all sub 2 deals make sense. And then how to close it, disclosures, and then what to do from there. Do we rent it, flip it, lease option it, wrap it? All the legal and tax issues. Like here's an interesting one. I'm sure you get all the time, Bill. So the seller gets a 1098 for the mortgage every year, not me, the investor buyer. Can I deduct that interest, or does he deduct the interest? Right? So that's a teaser. I won't tell you the answer. I'll tell you.
Right. You have to go to the workshop to get the answer, for
Yeah.
sure.
So, you know, how do you deal with that? You know?
Absolutely. So like I said, Bill's where I learned a lot of my stuff getting started. I remember going out and meeting with my first sub-2 seller and pulling those forms. I didn't even know how to fill them out because he didn't have workshops at the time like that. You had to fly wherever. I remember flying to Dallas once to see you do a entity and business structure workshop when I first got started. But as far as he's going to show you how to fill out his sales contract, I didn't know. I had to get the seller to help me fill the contract out. But we got the deal done. We got the deal done, and I made $28,000 on my first one, so it was great. Man, we really appreciate you being here. We've got some freebies for you guys. You know, listen, I give my guys freebies for coming on and asking questions. We've got a really good one for you today. We put together about I guess it's 12 or 15 resources for you. Anything from cost to sell, formula calculators, to negotiation ebooks, to business plans, all kinds of tools for you. You can go to sub2cooltools.com. No, I'm sorry. My assistant corrected me. sub2coolstuff.com. Okay. We had an argument over what to name it. So sub2coolstuff.com. Go there, download all your free tools. We're going to give that to everybody that's been on here today. Again, Bill, we'll appreciate you being here, taking the time to talk to us, educate us. You guys go to the workshop. Time well spent. I can't speak enough about the value of his education. Thanks so much for being here today. We appreciate you.
And thanks to everyone who joined and asked great questions. Appreciate it. You do a great thing here, William.
All right. You guys have a great day. Go talk to some sellers. Go buy some houses. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.